We are recording.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special meeting of the Greenwich Board of Selectmen. The reason why we are meeting is it's been the practice of the Board of Selectmen whenever the town is looking into possibly initiating a lawsuit to meet, and also for transparency purposes to address what we feel was the illegal meetings of the Board of Education on October 21st and 23rd, and other BOE actions stemming from those meetings. We will discuss and have a possible vote on this. And before I turn it over to my colleagues, I just wanted to get some thoughts on record here. That if we don't, if this board, the reason why I call this meeting is if this board and the town does not address this situation, every board, committee, and commission in the town of Greenwich would be able to call for political purposes a meeting and call it an emergency when clearly there was not an emergency. And if past practice is any indicator, we can look to more extreme examples of like about 15 or 20 years ago when it was reminded to me today that there was, I think it was in Ridgefield, an assistant fire chief, I believe, was going to get promoted to chief, and the first selectman told him that because of their friendship, he could not do that, and the person went into the office and threatened to kill him. And so that first selectman went and posted an emergency notice, and they had the meeting, and that was appealed to the commission, and the commission said there was no emergency at all. And that's a higher bar than this is. So certainly we think that there's a lot of precedent here, and certainly every single board and committee, including the RTM, will be watching this closely, because if we don't address it, just imagine what could happen if people are allowed to promote and post a meeting and say it's an emergency. So with that, and Ben Bianco, our attorney, is on here to answer any questions that anybody may have. So anybody raising their hand would like to comment at all? My colleagues?
Well,
You start off.
Typically we let Lauren start off, so I'll defer to her if she has something to say.
Yes, hold on. So, interestingly enough, I helped coordinate the FOIA training that we had earlier in the year. We're actually even going to add it to one of the questions when people want to join and be nominated and appointed for a board, commission, or committee, if they're willing to take the FOIA training. So I actually was just re-looking up, the definition of an emergency meeting. And, it doesn't seem like it was a true emergency. I know that there was discussion on allowing whoever was going to be filling the spot, that they would have more time to vote on some critical budget votes. But having served on the Board of Education, and you get elected in November, we don't always have time, even as a new member, to get up to speed on the budget information. In fact, when I was elected to the Board of Ed, we had a lawsuit where somebody was terminated and had to get up to speed, super quick. There was like nothing emergency about, getting us, once we were elected, sworn in, et cetera. So that's the vantage point that, I'm looking at this from. Then I know that we didn't really get to express our vote on putting forward Paul Cappielli last week, and I just wanted to address that. There's a lot in the press about Jen, and I'm not discounting her qualifications whatsoever, but the only stuff that I keep reading about is a friend, cronyism, things like that. I want to, on Paul's behalf, his wife is a teacher. When I was on the Distinguished Teacher Award Committee, she was awarded the Distinguished Teacher Award. Her presentation at the ceremony sits with me to this day on her ability to teach students. His two sisters, one is an administrator, another one is an educator, and I just want to go on record that he's got his own connections to the importance of education and serving on the Greenwich's Board of Education. So on his behalf, I wanted to make that statement.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Janet, you're up.
All right, well, let me start by repeating, I don't see how this board can engage in promoting a candidate when we have not even interviewed anyone. I'm not even sure how we got here today. The Board of Selectmen, assuming this authority is unprecedented, and calling these special meetings is a departure from our usual practice. I do understand that the question before us, who gets to choose the candidate to fill this vacancy, is now in the hands of lawyers, and that will cost the town money. I cannot vote to use taxpayer dollars for this purpose, in particular to file a FOIA complaint against another elected board. I would hold steadfast that elected boards should respect the autonomy of other boards, and filing a complaint against another is not in the town's best interest. You don't need my approval to file a complaint. Anyone can, though I don't think that anyone wants to see legal costs increase further from a protracted fight. And on this topic, I'd like to know why we, the Board of Selectmen, are using outside counsel when we have a town attorney who could take this up. All I see are legal bills that will enrich the lawyers and not our children.
Thank you, Janet. Before I turn it over to Ben Bianco, let me respond to some of your points there. Number one, I find it odd that you're questioning the process, because this is the process, and the process would be to follow the rules, right? The Board of Education is not immune to the 24-hour posting notice. They seem to think they are, and President and common sense would tell you that they're not. And you talk about legal costs, they're the ones that hired a lawyer first. Number one, so they're the ones that cost the money. Number two, did the acting chairwoman consult the Republicans on that board, or did she just go to the Democrats on that board? Right? There's lots of things that stem, we think, illegal actions stemming from two illegal meetings. You can't pick and choose what laws you're going to follow. I'm surprised, because you bring up process every single meeting, and yet you seem to be ignoring it here. And I know you read a statement there that was prepared. I don't need to read the statement, Janet. I know what we're talking about here. You're asking us to turn a blind eye to them ignoring a 24-hour posting notice. And I'm really shocked that you would bring that up. And you said this is unprecedented. It's not. The first selectman had the right on day 31. I could have done it myself. And because we're transparent, and because I've done every single time I've wanted my colleagues on this board to be involved in decisions, that we're all discussing this. And I'm always open to cases and other points of view to help me sometimes challenge my views or maybe change my mind. Everything you said there, it falls on the face of everything you've ever stood for. So we did not initiate this. They did. Right. I read, and I'm surprised you said that, because you heard me say at the last meeting that we received a letter from a lawyer. So it was not us that initiated this lawsuit. It was the Democrats on the Board of Education. So you had the timeline wrong.
So I don't know where to start with this.
Well, that's the facts.
Right.
Those are the facts.
Let's go fact by fact.
Yeah, let's do that.
You are absolutely right that I am a stickler for process, in particular FOIA. I believe that this meeting was called to discuss whether we, the Board of Selectmen, are going to file a complaint with FOIA. So that's all I'm looking at. Do we need this board? Do we need to file a complaint when we know that already lawyers are dealing with this on both sides?
So do you want us to just turn a blind eye and say, okay, because Democrats, you hired a lawyer first, we're just going to let the process play out? No, as I mentioned before, if we do not address this, Janet, then every single board, committee, and commission in the town of Greenwich, including the RTM, could start posting notices and saying, for political purposes, there's an emergency. We are following the process to a T. You are ignoring it.
I'm not a lawyer and I am not going to argue whether they're in the right or wrong. I am simply asking, what are we, the Board of Selectmen, going to get out of filing a FOIA complaint against another elected board?
To allow to see if the commission would decide that, do they let this go and let a board who we feel has had illegal meetings because they did not follow the posting notice requirements that we all have to follow, and everything that stemmed from those meetings, including some questionable actions that I mentioned before, are that going to stand? Because if it is, Janet, then we all could start posting notices and just claiming it's an emergency. And where would that end? If we're not going to follow the process, right? If we're going to allow people to pick and choose what they will follow, then we're in trouble. And including the RTM, I think if you talk to members on the RTM, I think they're going to be a little concerned about this too.
I understand we're not going to pick and choose, but like I said, this is already in the hands of lawyers. Do we gain anything other than we get higher legal bills? Do we gain anything by complaining to FOIA, which is not, it's a protracted process. It's not going to be resolved next week. It's probably going to be resolved whichever way a year from now.
Janet, we have to hire the lawyer anyway. They initiated
And-
this.
And
We are
to be
responding.
clear, the reason why we can't use the town attorney, she would in essence almost have a conflict because she represents the Board of Education too. Like, so internally, the town attorney represents both boards. I understand that the Board of Education has gone out to external counsel and I think that we didn't have any other choice but to do the same. And my understanding of the process is that we do have to start the complaint process for the reasons that Fred has mentioned, because we don't want to create precedent for all of our other boards, commissions, and committees. And if you read the complaint, that's the relief, that we're requesting, to opine on if the reason why the emergency meeting was called is a valid emergency.
But this is a dual process. This is already going to be in the courts. It doesn't necessarily have to go to the FOIA commission. That's my point. We are inflating our legal costs by doing this. It's just not a good look for the town.
You're 100% right. We finally agree on something, Janet. And this look was created by the Democrats on the Board of Education, who again initiated the legal process here, the legal counsel. So we absolutely have no choice, in my opinion, that we have to right a wrong, because otherwise a precedent will be set. And we absolutely want to be on record as saying what they did was wrong, and anything that they have had these last two meetings and any meetings going forward stemming from illegal meetings, that they're going to be dealt with, and we need to have the commission weigh in on that, and we need to be on
And
record.
I think that is the first step. It's not going to court. It's not lawyers going to some court of law. The first step is going to our FOIA commission and just understanding was it a valid reason to have an emergency meeting?
But you're not going to get an answer to that. And it's going to take a very long time to get an answer. It will probably be answered after the next election, which is when this vacancy will be.
But it's important, Janet, to have the question answered. So for all the reasons, regardless of what happens for this particular board and this particular who fills the vacancy, and yes, an election next November when anybody who fills it is up for re-election, it's to maintain the sanctity of when does somebody call an emergency meeting. That's how I'm looking at it.
I believe Ben wanted to speak on that. I saw him raising his hand. Perhaps he had a point to make on that. Ben, you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, Ken, just very briefly in response to Janet. Janet, this is, and in agreement with Lauren, there is a process here, and the process is to go to the FOIA commission first. And I believe that your position on how long it'll take is inaccurate. There are specific expedited procedures within FOIA for situations like this. And we will be asking for the FOIA commission to rule on this as quickly as possible, and indeed ask most likely for them to rule before the next meeting, which is in a week. So I'm not saying they'll do that. It largely depends on what their schedule is. Whatever commissioner we get assigned, whatever ALJ we get assigned, it'll be up to their schedule as well. But in the end, I truly don't believe that this will take very long, and this is the process. What I'm hoping on behalf of the town, I'm a former resident of the town, but what I'm hoping on behalf of the town is that we get a ruling from the FOIA commission, and then the meeting is declared to be unlawful, and anything that happened in that meeting and anything that was directly tied to that meeting gets unwound, and everybody moves forward. And then there's no reason to go to court. Now, if we get a ruling from the FOIA commission, and then that ruling isn't followed by one or more people, then yes, maybe we have to go in for TROs and injunctions, but we're not there yet. We're in a relatively simple process. This is a relatively informal process. We will be filing a complaint on behalf of Fred and on behalf of the town, seeking a ruling to declare as unlawful the meeting on Monday and anything that flowed from that, the vote at that meeting, the following meeting on the 23rd, where there was no quorum because the person that was appointed to the board was appointed at a meeting that would be declared null and void. So that's where we're at. So I appreciate the fact that spending money is not in the town's best interest, but as Fred said at the very beginning, the precedent that this would set to just allow every town board in this town to declare emergencies that are not emergencies is also dangerous and could be very costly in the end.
Well, we're just gonna have to see how this moves forward, because as a former mediator, I'm not familiar with FOIA processes going that fast.
Thank you. And thank you, Ben, for the explanation, and Janet and Lauren. I don't think we need to go in anymore. We can go on and on about other reasons, but I think that the main reason is about precedent and going forward and protecting the town going forward and addressing it and getting it right now before it goes any further. So is there a motion to endorse the town filing a complaint with the Freedom of Information Commission?
Lauren Raven, so moved.
Fred Camillo, I second it. All those in favor, Fred Camillo is a yes.
Lauren Raven, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, no.
Okay. Thank you at 201. Ben, thank you so much. Ken,
No,
thank you.
wait, no, 210.
Yeah, so Janet, you are a negative vote, not an abstention.
I am a no.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
an
you.
abstention.
Yes, the other day it was 201. So thank you for the correction. 210. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ken. And enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Lauren Raven, so moved.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
Those in favor, Fred Camillo is a yes.
Lauren Raven, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.